Very good morning. First and foremost, allow me to express my gratitude for being invited to speak at this eclectic and timely event. Bravo to the organizers for bringing this event to the virtual and borderless world. Greetings to all the participants, and I'm glad to see some of my learned acquaintances here with us. Good morning, Borneo, Santi, Adeline, and Josh. When I was first invited to speak at this event, I must admit I was a little apprehensive. I don't hold myself out as an expert in the field of legal tech, but the movement, I must say, is incredibly infectious. Hence, here I am. We are all aware of the far-reaching and devastating implications of COVID-19 on the global and national front. By no means am I downplaying the effects that this pandemic has had on the health, the economy, and our way of life as we used to know it. The silver lining in the form of legal tech is a consolation of sorts for those in the legal fraternity. This address will focus on the exponential rise of legal tech in Malaysia and the future potential. One might even say that there has been a shot in the arm over the past year, if you can pardon the pun. Could I have the next slide, please? I came across this quote by Niels Martin Borkner, a visionary legal tech entrepreneur and founder of Contract Book, which I feel aptly describes where we are today. He said, and I quote, "The impact of COVID-19 on the legal tech market is clear. The future of work is now. Technology is no longer a promise or threat of an automated future. It is a lifeline." Niels is a founder of a legal tech startup using a cloud-based software powered by data-driven document automation. They recently raised over $9 million in investments to expand their reach. It goes without saying that having the movement control orders imposed on our physical mobility has compelled us to embrace what has already been in existence. Many of us had little cause to use online meetings until the month of March last year when the pandemic struck Malaysia. Now it has become commonplace and part of everyday conversation. Could I have the next slide, please? Today, I would like to touch on three main aspects: the online dispute resolution arena, where I can share my personal experiences that I have had thus far; legal innovation for commercial transactions based on what is already out there externally and which we expect to be relevant sooner rather than later; and law firms embracing tech, the tools available to law firms to get onto that digital train. These apps or software solutions are already in existence, and one can't ignore their potential. Next slide, please. The online dispute resolution platform is not new. In fact, here in Sabah, through a provider called Signs, a government-linked company based in Sarawak, had actually connected the three high courts in Sabah, Kota Kinabalu, Sandakan, and Tawau, via video conferencing as far back as in 2009. Lawyers then would not need to travel or fly to attend matters which could be argued online in one of three different locations using the court facilities. This revolutionary precursor was followed shortly by the both e-filing and the e-payment schemes, thus kickstarting the paperless process for the practitioners. Fast forward to today, and due to the pandemic, as Josh mentioned, laws in Malaysia were recently amended to facilitate and permit remote technology in an effort to provide continuing access to justice to all stakeholders. Now, the VERT Forum cuts across all forms of dispute resolution, from the courts, arbitration, and mediation. For criminal matters, proceedings are now conducted with the suspect or the accused remaining in their detention facility, whilst the judges are at court and the lawyers from their own offices or home conducting matters like remand hearings and case management. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, despite the seismic shift in the way proceedings are now being conducted, we are faced with both pros and cons. The pros, clearly we have efficiency in the allocation of resources. Time saved traveling and elimination of costs are a given. We now no longer need to print voluminous documents for reference by the parties. I remember being informed by the appellate courts that they would spend up to 40,000 ringgit just carting documents to and fro Putrajaya to Kota Kinabalu as a result of the cost of the wait imposed by the airlines. These same documents can be flashed up on screen, and the geographical benefits are clearly apparent. Appellate judges don't need to travel from Peninsular Malaysia to Sabah, and lawyers can conduct proceedings literally anywhere with decent internet coverage. Now, the cons. Many practitioners feel that the virtual presence can't replace physical presence. There is a sense of disconnect when arguments are presented to a screen as opposed to in person. And for trials, it may be difficult for the judge or the arbitrator to observe the credibility of witnesses under cross-examination. Non-verbal communication is not so obvious virtually, and there's a tendency to over-focus on the documentation being shared as opposed to the advocacy, which is the art of persuasion. There have also been concerns of privacy and security over the internet, although these concerns do not seem to be much of an issue as they were initially. Improvements. Online dispute resolution is very much dependent on the strength of the infrastructure. In the event of a literal internet disruption, the testimony may not be heard or could be omitted unknowingly. Additionally, one may miss having an opportunity to make an objection until after the event. These are issues that need further attention. The other aspect is that of witness coaching, whereby one may not be aware if a witness is being told how to answer a question by another person off screen, but within sight of the witness. Suggestions have made that perhaps it would be better to have the witnesses located in a third party's premises where an independent observer can vouch that there's no prompting taking place. Could I have the next slide, please? Legal innovation for commercial transactions. I came across a company called Clause that produces dynamic contracts that in fact perform themselves. For instance, in shipping contracts, the software tracks the location of goods, triggers an auto release of funds when the delivery has been confirmed. More recently, they have also launched a real-time self-verification of addresses for customers using an external source of truth. Hence, the validity of an address is confirmed during the process of the transaction itself. This prevents fraud, reduces cost, and improves customer onboarding. Another company known as Kira Systems produces software which identifies, extracts, and analyzes text in contracts and other documents at the press of a button. This software has 450 built-in models providing due diligence, compliance, and even finance analysis. Can I have the next slide, please? Legal tech for law firms. Now, there are a phenomenal number of document automation softwares. These are template forms where in answer to a series of questions posed, the variables are obtained, and thereafter a tailor-made bespoke contract is created. This is in fact nothing new. These programs were first formed nearly 30 years ago. It is said that lawyers spend approximately 60% of their time drafting documents. Reducing that time to dedicate towards building business relations and billable hours will only increase the revenue of a law firm. Can I have the next slide, please? LawTech available. Now, legal practice management systems help law firms manage day-to-day workflows and business operations within their law practice. The digitization enables the software to manage law firms' cases, contacts, calendars, tasks, deadlines, billings, payments, accounting, and much more. Many systems are available, such as Clio or Abacus Law. Identifying your needs first will be necessary in sourcing the most suitable software for the firm. One size doesn't always fit all. There's also the Easy Law app, a fantastic user-friendly app that assists with land searches, calculation of fees, real property gains tax, and carries relevant legislation and the rules of court for Malaysia on your phone. This app is evidence that one need not reinvent the wheel to embrace tech. Next slide, please. Harnessing legal tech. I came across another company called Legal Miner. They are described as architects of a new age of data analysis. They mine litigation data, consolidate it, structure it for easy results. A bank in China used to have to search 3,500 websites to identify a customer's potential credit risk. Legal Miner amalgamated this data so that decisions on the risk can be taken with the press of a button. Ravel Law is another startup that is now owned by LexisNexis. They use data mining to uncover patterns in judges' rulings so as to predict the potential case outcomes. Now, whilst these initiatives are in the pipeline internationally, on the home front, we've yet to fully embrace the use of e-signatures or digital signatures, despite having what is known as the Digital Signatures Act of 1997 and the Electronic Commerce Act of 2006. The courts in Malaysia have held that even an SMS fulfills the criteria for an electronic signature. But other legislation, like the National Land Code or the Land Ordinance in Sabah, have not moved with the times. Dealings in property still require the wet signature. In the face of a pandemic, it would have been ideal to be able to secure electronic signatures without the physical presence of the signatories. It is perhaps just a matter of time before e-signatures become a viable and a real solution. Next slide, please. Other legal tech initiatives. AI, one can't have a legal tech event without mentioning AI. Broadly used in many other law texts to help lawyers scan through thousands of pages of documents and answer law-related questions in seconds. AI helps predict sentencing outcomes. It extracts legal precedents and verdicts almost instantly for criminal offenses, contested divorces, and medical negligence. Sabah had its own experience with AI. 19th of February last year, the Malaysian judiciary in Kota Kinabalu used a program which had analyzed the nature of charges, the age of the accused, and the employment and socioeconomic data for like-minded cases. And this certainly saves the court time from manually referring to previous cases and is meant to improve the analysis and the consistency in the recommendations for the sentencing of a criminal. However, there is, of course, skepticism. The algorithm is not disclosed. This calls into question transparency issues. And as a result, it is perceived that AI can only act as a guide and not really take away the judge's discretion. Can I have the next slide, please? Future ready. I would like to suggest that there should be a LawTech blueprint for the nation. A forecasted framework will assist to chart the legal tech direction for the country. It is clear that lawyers need to embrace being digitally savvy or be left behind. Jurisdictions that have a head start will be deemed as more active destinations for investors who place a high value on legal representation and advice. In order for this to happen, we need the government, we need the judiciary, and other stakeholders' support. In fact, the three bars of Malaysia ought to channel their efforts towards the creation of a national blueprint for the legal tech. A collective and holistic approach will only yield results in the long term. Next slide, please. Over-dependency. We have and will likely experience quantum leaps in the practice of law with legal tech. It has already happened. The traditional ways of practice have evolved. Instead of manual searches for cases, we now have search engines. Instead of physical courts, we now have virtual ones. Instead of having to draft pleadings or agreements from scratch, programs create them. Now, whilst we are on an upward trajectory in adapting with the evolving legal tech landscape, one may still need to have some form of flexibility, just in case of the unexpected, so that we are able to return to the fundamental skills of old. And lastly, last slide, please. My apologies if this address has been heavy on the digestion front. Perhaps that is symptomatic of the era that we are in, with time being in short supply and information being literally unlimited. I look forward to the 3 panel sessions following on from now for a more in-depth view of the law tech horizon. And if I may close with this, identify the reach, implement the potential, and do not fear the legal tech abstract. Lastly, a quick shout out to Kimberly, Akila, and Masirfan from the Sabah AG Chambers for assisting me with the preparation of these slides. Thank you, and I wish everyone a productive and engaging day ahead. Over and out.